Adesanya. It's not as easy as he thought it was going to be.
Jared Cannonier can put people to sleep. Make it 21 in a row for Alexander the Great.
Max Holloway looks as good as he's ever looked right now.
Here we go. One of the biggest superstars in this sport.
Cannonier's got some power.
Volkanovski, he's got every tool in the book.
Max Holloway showing this level. What a fantastic matchup.
2 championship fights.
Get ready.
What's up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to Fight Week here on BT Sport. This is your official weigh-in show for UFC 276. That's right. We are around the globe today. London, Liverpool, and Guadalajara. That's where we are. That's how we're bringing you this phenomenal program. Guadalajara is a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the gist. The lad's on his holidays. Nick Peet in Liverpool and Hall of Famer himself. I'm surprised that he's not doing the lounge. You're on his holidays to wind us up even more, drinking a pina colada. How are you, Mike? You well?
Oh, hey, senor, I'm very good here, you know, down here in Mexico. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Having a lovely time, but all the better to talk to you guys, and very, very excited for UFC 276. And if you believe a single word of that, and you don't think I've got to be flying at the ocean,
listen,
you're out of your goddamn mind.
Before we came on air, Nick, his missus and family were fuming with him. The man doesn't stop working. He's even on holiday, having a graft. Loves a pound note, does the lad, doesn't he? Eh? He can't sit down.
Proper northerner.
That's it. Listen, we've got an action-packed show lined up for you. Obviously, the boys and girls of UFC 276 are going to hit the scales very, very shortly. This all goes down prelims 1 a.m. In the early hours of Sunday morning on BT Sport 1, with that main card getting underway from 3. And there is that main card. 2 title fights, middleweight title on the line, featherweight title on the line, the trilogy fight between Volkanovski and Max Holloway. We've also got some big contender fights in there as well, with Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira in the middleweight division. A lot of people saying that the winner of that will be next in line for a shot at the middleweight title. We've got what we would class as maybe, I say legends. Robbie Lawler most certainly is, but Brian Barberina has probably earned the right to have a little bit of a throwdown with Robbie Lawler. And then we've got obviously that fight kicking off the main card, which everybody's excited about. Pedro Munoz on a bit of a skid at the moment, 1-4 in his last 5 fights, taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley, his biggest test to date in the UFC. Right, boys, let's get stuck straight in, shall we, to the main event. Lots of back and forth this week. Jared Cannonier, Mike, seems incredibly focused, lasered in on his target, and Israel Adesanya, it just seems to him like it's another day at the office. These two boys are hopefully going to put on a bit of a show for us on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah, listen, it's going to be amazing. I do believe that Cannonier is going to present a different type of challenge. By that, I mean, he's not just going to rely on the wrestling. He's confident enough to walk forward, to use the hands. I mean, look at the knockout power. That was after defending many, many takedowns. Then he took Derek Brunson out of there. Here he is. I mean, the man fought at heavyweight, light heavyweight, now obviously number 1 contender at middleweight. And big opportunity, life-changing opportunity. Adesanya kind of is just another day at the office and taking out another number 1 contender, cement his legendary status. The problem is, do you get complacent when you become like that? Do you take it for granted? Do you step off the gas in the training room? I don't believe so. I believe that he cherishes his position. He's a professional, but still, they are the questions when one starts becoming as dominant as Israel Adesanya.
When they faced off yesterday, Nick, I did make me smile a touch. It reminded me very much of Carl Froch, George Groves. You remember the handshake situation, a little bit of push and pull? Yep. He wasn't for letting go of that hand, was he?
No, not at all. And as you say, you know, no one ever won a fight in these stare downs or on the scales that we're going to see shortly. But you can absolutely lose a fight here if you're not in control of your faculties. Cannonier, just give him a bit of a laugh. He knows what it's all about. He's, as Mike says, been around the block. Cannonier. He's taken his entire career to get to this point to finally fight for UFC gold, and he can't blow it at the final stage. He's up against a future Hall of Famer that looks almost set in stone now. You know, what can Adesanya achieve in the rest of his career from here? But Cannonier is the best other middleweight on the planet today. He's fresh meat, if you like, and he's got absolutely nothing to lose. And as you can see there as well, obviously all the size advantage with Adesanya, as he has been his entire career. Cannonier, just look at the images. Forget the stats. Look at the images. Look at the size of them arms, size of those pecs, the shoulders. He's a mountain of a man for this weight class.
Both of those guys do like to fight at range, Mike. It's going to be interesting to see how Jared Cannonier shuts the distance on Israel Adesanya, because he is a master of distance. He is brilliant at keeping his opponents on the end of that jab, on the end of them kicks. So it's going to be an interesting task ahead for Jared tomorrow night.
Yeah, and that's essentially what this fight comes down to. It is going to be a striking match. I think Cannonier has to close the distance. He has to try and back him up, take away those natural advantages that Izzy has against almost everybody, and then be good enough to stand there and go toe-to-toe, to have the reflexes, the striking skills, basically, the slips, the feints, the parries, the combinations, the stamina, all of that stuff. Can he walk him down? Can he take away the length? And then once he's there, be good enough to compete, because it's all well and good taking away the reach and all the rest of it. But if you're just not as good, if you haven't got the minerals, so to speak, to stand there with somebody like Adesanya, then you're going to go to sleep. And it's going to be a sore night to the office, and you're going to be annoyed and embarrassed when you wake up. But I think he has. I think he is good enough. And I keep going on about it, and I sound like a broken record. But what he did against Anderson Silva is the perfect strategy and the way to fight Israel Adesanya. And I'm just saying, I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people think.
Can't wait for it. That's our main event, the middleweight title on the line between Israel Adesanya and Jared Cannonier. We've got another world title fight. Obviously, in the featherweight division, it's the trilogy fight between Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. We will play some pictures very, very shortly, and we'll show you a little bit of a face-off. But we've obviously got to get over to Las Vegas, because the boys and girls are going to hit the scale in a minute. Just a quick one on that second fight, on this trilogy fight. No fighter ever has entered a UFC trilogy 0-2 down, Mike, and come out victor in the third fight. Will history change tomorrow?
All right, thank you all for being here for the official weigh-in for UFC 276, and we will begin with the undisputed UFC featherweight champion, one half of the co-main event, Alexander the Great Volkanovski.
Well, here he is. No messing about. Straight away, the champ, Alexander Volkanovski, onto the scales.
Yeah, and he's been in fine form all week. I mean, the man truly is a champion, the way he approaches everything. And once again, I always say, best thing to do.
144.5, the official weight for Alexander Volkanovski.
Is to be the first man on the scale. Now he's off, as you would say, Adam, to the buffet and rehydrating, more importantly.
All right, next athlete to the scale, his teammate and the undisputed UFC middleweight champion, the last style bender, Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, they're both here to make a statement. They've been around, Vegas for the last week or more. They were at the event last weekend, and they've been happy, smiling. And it's that team mentality, isn't it? You all turn up, you win, you fight together, you win together, you lose together. These guys have all come to win, and they all look great. Adesanya looks incredible.
183.5, the official weight for the champ.
Jeez, 1.5 pounds underneath.
Yeah, but he's always, listen, the man's very lean, isn't he? So he's never the heaviest.
All right, next athlete to the scale, the middleweight title challenger and second-ranked UFC middleweight contender, the kilogram.
Cannonier won't be light.
No.
Jared Cannonier.
Looks a different weight division.
184.5.
Got ourselves some light scales.
I was going to say, you know what I mean? Charles Oliveira could have done with these scales, could he?
Oh, don't say it, Adam. All the conspiracy theories.
All right, next athlete to the scale, one of the all-time greats, the former UFC featherweight champion of the world.
Cannonier looks massive, and that's sucked in.
Yeah.
Wait till we see him tomorrow night with an extra 20 pounds on him, and that's going to help.
Exactly.
No, it might slow him down, but it might put some extra sting on the punch.
144.5, the official weight for Max Holloway. Your co-main event and main events are official.
We got title fights. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody coming in well and truly under.
All right, now moving along to a prelim in the welterweight division. You can see it live on both ESPN and ABC. We say hello to gifted Gabe Green.
Oh, Ian Gary's opponent.
This is going to be a banger.
I like this guy on the scales. He's going to be popular backstage. Everyone's half a pound under so far.
Yeah, I did a seminar last week with this guy. I forget his name.
170 on the nose.
But he's a very nice guy. We did a seminar with the judges and the referees and all the rest of it. And how
next athlete to the scale, also competing in the welterweight division, live on the pay-per-view main card, Brian Bam Bam Barberena.
Taking fast here, boys.
Hey, you could be back by the pool in 20 minutes, son. If they keep going like this, this is good.
That's it.
Skinny Margs.
Skinny Margs, look at you, man. Clitheroe's well and truly in the rearview mirror.
Official weight for Brian.
The skinny margaritas aren't skinny when you have 20.
All right, next fighter to the scale is the 13th ranked middleweight in the world at present, Andre Sergipano Muniz.
This is an interesting fight. Uriah Hall versus Muniz. Yeah, it's so early on the card, and I know it's a pay-per-view event in the US. I know the numbered events are stacked from top to bottom, but to have two guys ranked in the top 15,
185.5.
So early on the card.
Weight for Andre Muniz.
It just shows the quality of the fight card, to be honest, Nick. There's not a weak fight or a fight that I'm not absolutely intrigued by.
And this is one
ABC
in the middleweight division. Dricus du Plessis.
Record of 22-4, 15 submissions. So for Uriah Hall, we know how he fights.
Du Plessis, I'm a fan of this guy. This is the South African guy, isn't it? He was EFC champion. He fought in KSW. Come over to the UFC. Has looked great at times. Seriously avoided fighter.
For Dricus du Plessis.
4 fights I think he's had fall off in the last 12 months.
This is the first fight
of the UFC bantamweight division.
You know, Brad Tavares.
We say hello to
he's been around forever. He's got name value. Just shows how good the card is.
Just got a couple of little glitches, haven't we, on the feed coming through here, boys and girls?
I'm glad you said that. I was just about to check my Wi-Fi there.
I didn't catch any of that. So I don't know whether she made weight or not.
To the scale is
one. Was it? I couldn't even see. It was all glitched up at my end.
Brad Quake Riddell.
Brad Riddell's here.
He's the third part.
As you said before, the team atmosphere, Volkanovski, Adesanya, Riddell, last week with Carlos Solberg at the Apex, he started it to show off. First round stoppage. You know, not that matters because it's not a team sport, but it's just reinforcement, positive mental reinforcement. And in the final week, that's what it's all about. Mental preparation, a good morale. Everyone getting on pay-per-view,
the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley.
As well. And that's where they're headed.
Absolutely.
And here's a big star. Love this guy.
Big test for him this weekend, Mike. This is it now. You're in the big leagues.
135 pounds, the official weight for the 13th ranked Sean O'Malley.
It is, but it's the perfect introduction to the top 10. With all the
next fighter to the scale is his opponent.
Hold on, I don't want to talk over Anik. Yeah, all the respect to Pedro, as you said before, you know, he's lost 4 out of his last 5. So, you know, the writing's on the wall, the narrative speaks for itself. I don't even need to say the words. But still, you know, he did crack Dominic Cruz last time out, almost had him out of there. So, you know, he's not a walk in the park.
Yes.
And anytime you're on a losing streak like that, it obviously it does motivate you. You want to prove the world wrong.
Next fighter to the scale is the 12th ranked UFC.
Prove that you're not a stepping stone for Sean O'Malley and all these things. So there's a lot of, you know, you can use that as a lot of motivation.
Absolutely.
Love a good glitch, though.
185.5.
We're just trying to obviously get a bead, so therefore people can obviously watch along with everything that's happening in Las Vegas at the moment. You'll still be able to see it, but I think it's even better if you can see our beautiful faces just a little bit better as well, isn't it? You know, as we're getting stuck into all this. Just in case you have just joined the feed, a little bit of news: your middleweight title fight, your featherweight title fight, All the fighters there have gone through, all 4, so therefore they're in the books and job done. As is the fight that's kicking off that main card. Pedro Munoz has come through, hit the scales good, as did Sugar Sean O'Malley. We've had a little bit of technical issues coming from Las Vegas, so a few fighters have gone through that I haven't been able to see and keep on top of. I'll try and get that information for you in the next couple of minutes. This is an interesting one here, Mike. We know that Cowboy's on his way to the scales right now. He's made weight, twice in the last 2 to 3 months, fights that have fallen off. And obviously he's here again. Fingers crossed, next 24 hours, there's no glitches for him.
Yeah, this one's at 170 though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That's
right, that's correct.
For Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah, after the last debacle, we say, with Joe Lawson, he went off, he was drinking beer, he was barbecuing, he was living his life and enjoying himself because Dana said, no, we're not going to book the fight
next
again.
fighter to the scale, you can see him compete in a prelim live on ESPN and ABC in the welterweight
we
division.
actually
The
got
future,
a fight for you
Ian
if you
Gary.
want it. Well, okay, but I've got a belly full of beer and barbecue, so if we're doing it, which I will, we got to do it at 170. And Jim Miller was like, sweet, let's do that.
171 pounds, the official weight for Ian Gary.
Looking forward, as you said a moment or two ago, Mike, big fight for him again.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a definite step up in the competition that he's got. You know, Gabe Green doesn't have particularly, certainly in the UK, a big name, but I've commentated a few of his fights. He's tough, man. He's no walk in the park. He is. Yeah, he's got all the makings of a future contender. I spoke to some of his coaches. They had tremendous things to say about him. They said he hit so hard. Obviously, preview show, I talked about how his vision and his eyesight is much improved now, so that's making him even more effective. As we know, Ian, he loves to strike on the feet, as does Gabe. It's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a good test for both men.
Look at this feed. It's all over the place, isn't it, today? Again, just to remind people who are tuning in wherever you are around the world, watching us here on BT Sport, just got a couple of glitches in the feed coming from Las Vegas. Hopefully you can hear myself, Nick and Mike in 3 different locations all around the world. That seems to be working and seems to be up and running, so we'll be able to obviously keep the conversation flowing for you. But the feed from Vegas, we're just trying to sort that out for you as there's a little bit of a gap in the process. When we started the show, gents, we did obviously jump into the middleweight title fight and gave that a big preview. The featherweight title fight deserves equal amount of love and attention. Nick, here's one for you, because that second fight, Max Holloway most certainly changes his approach to the fight. He starts an awful lot quicker and he takes those first 2 rounds. Many people believe that he maybe took that 3rd round as well and was very unfortunate not to get his hand raised and regain his belt, should I say. With that in mind, with him changing his tactics and with him not winning, does he have to do something even more different? Does he just rinse and repeat and do the same thing again?
No, he certainly can't afford to rinse and repeat and do the same thing again, because he never got the decision. The judges went against him. Now, whether we agree with that decision or we know or not, Max Holloway is going to go away and think, I can't leave it into the hands of the judges. I've got to do more. And for the fear factor here, if you're Max Holloway, he feels like he can't rely on the judges anymore. He's got to go above and beyond, and that's going to put him more at risk. I think what it does do, I would like to believe that if Alexander Volkanovski and his team watched that second fight, I think they watched the second fight and realized, you know what, maybe we got a bit lucky, maybe we didn't. But we had the same game plan as the fight number 1. Max Holloway had a different game plan in fight number 2. He matched us kick for kick in the low kicks. And I think Volkanovski may have added something else to his arsenal this time. He knows he's rinsed and repeat twice, and he's got the decision, so maybe it works. But I just think in that second fight was a whole lot closer. Most people believe, I think Volkanovski needs to make the adjustments as well. I think it's going to be a completely different fight. The first 2 followed a similar pattern. First 2 rounds easy to score, 3, 4, and 5 quite difficult. I think this fight, either fighter can allow the opponent to win the rounds so emphatically as what happened in the first 2 fights. I think it's going to be blue to from 1, absolutely mental for 25 minutes.
Mike, just on what Nick just said there on the second fight, we saw in that 3rd round, definitely the 4th round, Volkanovski go more wrestle heavy. He decided to try and shut that distance, get older Max Holloway and attempt those takedowns. Are you anticipating him to use more of a wrestling base in this fight?
Yeah, John Annick's just about to talk as someone's going to come out here because I'm going to wow you with some brilliance in a moment that you're just not going to believe. So I don't want to be competing with glitchy John Anik as he's known in certain circles these days. But who is it? Who we got?
Jessie J, innit? Jessica Rose Clark.
I was talking about her recently. I don't know if it's a love heart or
the official weight for Jessica Rose Clark.
On her face.
Tattoo. Yeah, because a teardrop.
She's got one on the inside, yeah. Mm-hmm. So
but yeah, you know what? To answer the question, Adam.
Come on, then. Yeah.
Well, we'll check it. Well, in the second fight, Holloway dropped Volkanovski in round 1 and round 2. Okay, and Volkanovski was talking this week about the chin of Max Holloway because it's legendary and he's been in wars and he's never been dropped and all the rest of it. I got some stats for you, boys. Max Holloway has statistically the best chin in the UFC when you combine number of strikes, the amount of time he's been knocked down, and time spent in the octagon. He has spent 385 minutes in the octagon. He has absorbed 1,811 strikes. And he's been knocked down 0 times. I mean, that in itself is absolutely unbelievable. In at number 2, if you're interested, is John Jones. Then Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, of course, on the card as well. He has spent 211 minutes in the octagon. He's been hit 647 times. 741. Never gone down. I could go on all day, boys. I could go on all day. The reality is, Max Holloway has a very, very good chin. You could say that he is his ability to take a shot. But the reality is, even though he's very good and he's got a great chin, he's down 0-2. You know, he is going to have to come out of here, out of the gates with a rocket up his backside, so to speak, because he cannot afford to lose a single round. Because if it heads to the judges' scorecards, you never know which way it's going to go.
Let's have a look at the highlights from those first 2 fights, shall we? Because they were absolutely captivating, high level, incredible. To watch these two guys go at it. Obviously, the first time around, Volkanovski became the new champion, defeating the long-reigning Max Holloway. And he got a decision in that second fight. Hotly contested as well. A lot of people think that maybe that fight should have gone the other way. They're just perfect, aren't they, Nick, these two?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the weights on the planet, it's arguably the 2 best featherweights in the history of the sport. Jose Aldo's probably the 3rd one you would put into that equation. But, you know, when Max in this free-flow state, when his hands are down, when he was at times in this second fight, you know, he's almost unstoppable. And that's why, you know, we were saying he was the greatest prior to him jumping up to take on Dustin Poirier. That didn't work out. Came back down to his weight class that he was dominating until that point and runs straight into the freight train that is Volkanovski. They've got so many similar qualities, and yet they're so different as fighters as well. But you know, Volkanovski just looks unbeatable at times. And likewise, Max Holloway is just absolutely relentless. That's what makes this fight so intriguing. That's why we're getting a 3rd fight when one guy has won 2 previously. And you know what? This weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a 4th fight down the road as well, because they're the 2 best guys in the world.
Do you want some? I'll give you some more stats in a minute. But first and foremost, let's look at the face-off from yesterday, because I personally think that Max is... This is the most animated, emotionally invested that I've seen for a long time. As he was going up the stairs yesterday, but even when he was on the microphone, very, very animated. Really, really emotionally invested in this one, Mike.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, this one could be the final decider as to whether or not it's him or Volkanovski that goes down in history as the greatest featherweight of all time. You know, for fighters, when you get to this stage, yes, of course. Listen, they're both champs, they're both legends, they're both future hurlers. They've both got money in the bank, right? This comes down now. This is about pride. Obviously, it's about getting the belt back. It's for Max Holloway. It's about securing those massive paydays down the line where you're getting a percentage of the pay-per-view. But as I say, it's about good old-fashioned pride. You know, you want to get one back over that man. He's beaten you twice in a row. Yes, there's a moral victory in the sense that a lot of the public feel that you won the fight. And that's all well and good. But that doesn't pay your bills. That doesn't pay the mortgage. And when people look at the history books down the line, you will see 2 losses to Alexander Volkanovski. Max Holloway's been an incredible champion and he wants to be one again. The problem is he's got that little Australian, that little tank, that little hard-hitting fella that gets better every single time we see him. So, yeah, pressure on, big time.
Seeing as that you're dishing out stats, you ready for one?
Oh,
It's not related to the 2 title fights, but check this out, right? I've got an absolute belter for you. 3,104 instances in the UFC, in the history of the UFC, of a fighter throwing 100 or more distant strike attempts in a fight. And on that list, Sean O'Malley posted the highest accuracy rate versus in that fight with Chris Moutinho at 73%. There you go. Big fight for Sean O'Malley. I know
Did you just say distant strike attempts? What the hell is distant strike attempts?
Distant strike attempts means
do you not know your
hitting
stats?
fresh air, Nick.
Exactly.
No.
I can do that. World champ, mate.
73% accuracy. My point is, regarding the fight with Pedro Munoz, because this is really interesting. Munoz is brilliant on the floor. Superb Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But he's fallen in love with his hands, and that's kind of played to his recent fights. Yes, he's fought elite opposition, guys that have been former champions. But he's ended up getting beat on 4 of those 5 occasions. He's got to change this up if he's going to have success against Sean O'Malley, hasn't he, Mike? Because Sean, like I said, on the feet, at range, is excellent.
Yeah, I love your stats. I love that you're trying to outdo me on the stats. But the reality is that was a great stat until you mentioned the name Chris Moutinho. And I'm not slagging off Chris Moutinho, but he stepped up at short notice, making his UFC debut and wasn't known to anybody. He showed a lot of toughness, a lot of grit, and I'm sure he secured himself a decent UFC. But you know, no one knew who he was. That's like me hitting my punch bag or hitting fresh air. What was the point? Oh, yeah. Listen.
Exactly. The point was just to give news. That was your point. That's what you wanted
to do. Yeah, it was. I totally didn't listen to your question because I just wanted to rebuttal. No, the reality is, your point, hitting someone in the face when you connect and you get a knockout or whatever, number one, it's addictive, right? So that's why a lot of wrestlers and jiu-jitsu guys, obviously they have to learn how to strike. When they start getting success, it's more satisfying, but also easier. It's a lot easier to land one shot with your arm than what it is to get your hands on them, wrestle them down to the ground, pass guard, set up submissions. Some people, obviously, if you're highly skilled, they can do that with ease. But, you know, landing a good shot is a lot less tiring and it's a lot less to invest or potentially sacrifice in terms of energy and output in pacing yourself throughout a fight, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. And, you know, let's be honest. That's what creates truly viral moments as well, especially in the Western world. People want to see knockouts, and that's what puts an extra zero on your check. It's what gets you back into the UFC office to renegotiate your contract. People want to see knockouts and want to see highlight reel moments. I think O'Malley delivers them, but let's not forget the UFC tried to step him up into the top 10 before. They matched him with Chito Vera, and Chito Vera kicked the legs from under him and sent him back down the rankings. Now they've had a couple of good wins from O'Malley again. Listen, I want O'Malley to be a superstar. I want him to go all the way. I want him to fight for titles. I want him because UFC can build this guy into a pay-per-view headliner 100%. But it's at the right time. And that's the $100 million question. Is Munoz fight at the right time this weekend? That's the gamble. Because you look at his record, yes, he's 1-4. Don't forget, he knocked out Cody Garbrandt not long ago when Cody Garbrandt was knocking everybody out. And the losses are Aljo, Edgar, Cruz, who's the fourth?
Aldo,
Aldo, Cruz, Edgar, of course. All former champion, current champion. The rest, Munoz is only losing to the very best guys in the world on that bracket yet. This is a huge test for him. And Munoz, as you say, his back's against the wall. He's a wounded animal, and he's going to give it 100%. I think that there's a reason why it's kicking off the main card, because it will absolutely deliver one way or the other. It ain't going a distance in my book. Someone's getting finished.
Absolute cracker. The other middleweight fight on the main card, Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira. It's been interesting this week because obviously this is only Alex Pereira's 3rd fight in the UFC. He's obviously being shoehorned towards the main man, Israel Adesanya, with the the narrative that those two guys have got in the world of kickboxing. And then you've got Sean Strickland, who's on a 5-fight win streak. He's had an interesting tenure since stepping up to middleweight. Obviously, off the back of that motorcycle accident that kept him out for 2 years, he stepped up and he's been brilliant, really, for 5 years. And he kind of stole the show yesterday, Mike. I don't know if you caught any of this. Obviously, whilst you're on your sun lounge, you're drinking your pina coladas. But he absolutely stole the show at the press conference. He went after Israel Adesanya, just went for him straight away, shouting left, right, and centre, and stole the show.
I saw highlights of it, believe it or not. I had better things to do, don't you know? But let's take a look at this here. Listen, Sean's a maniac, right? I'm looking at him now on his tiptoes, but he's not that much shorter. Listen, the man can fight. The man loves to fight as well. I know him well. Trained with him a lot down here in Orange County, California. Very controversial figure, but I couldn't care less. I don't care what comes out of his mouth. I don't want him to be a politician. I'm not trying to get him to teach my kids at primary school. I see him in entertaining fights inside a cage with 4-ounce gloves, almost naked. So what he says, I couldn't care less. What he brings to the octagon in terms of violence, I like to see that. Mm-hmm. Taking on Pereira, he knows he's kind of being overlooked. He knows the narrative that probably everyone wants Pereira to win, including me. And that's not because of something selfish or anything against Sean Strickland. It's just because I feel that Adesanya would have a relatively easy time with Sean, just stylistically. I want to see a fresh challenge for Israel Adesanya. I want to see him against the guy that beat him twice in kickboxing and see how far he's advanced in terms of mixed martial arts against the beginner in mixed martial arts, the expert kickboxer, that is Alex Pereira. It's just a great storyline. And I think everyone involved at the UFC would probably rather see that. However, Sean, he's going to walk him down. He's going to get in his face. Sean comes to fight. Simple as that.
He does. But, Nick, does he need to do something different tomorrow? Because the majority of people looking at this, if it's a straightforward, on-the-feet fight, listen, Sean's good. That's the world of Alex Pereira. Do you not have to be different to him in order to ask him some different questions?
Competing in the UFC's welterweight division, a legend making his record 5th UFC appearance.
Robbie Lawler. That was Jim Miller. So many legends on this card. More walks than any history, isn't he? My goodness.
Yeah. Mental, the body.
Definitely one for the fans.
For Jim Miller.
Him and
absolutely
Cerrone,
incredible.
The body of work, the workhorses that they've been for the UFC throughout. It's legends for sure.
UFC 89, Jim Miller first walked out at back in 2008. Most people watching this stream probably weren't even watching MMA at that stage. Incredible that he's been around for so long. But yeah, sorry, to get back to your point about Pereira. Yeah, of course.
Hold on. UFC 89, Bisping versus Lieben, Birmingham. Would that be the one, Nick Peet?
Correct, Mundo, sir.
I had to get a little
I love it.
Back to the analysis.
Exactly. Listen, Strickland knows exactly what Pereira's going to try and do because Pereira can only do one thing, and that's kickbox. He's too raw into his career to do anything else. So Strickland's not going to stand in front of him. And he let his Adesanya know that during the media day, where, as you say, Adam, he stole the show by going for Adesanya, called him all kinds of names and was digging at him. Why? Because he's trying to set up a fight. He's trying to get the title fight. And that's how you do it. You come in as the guy that's the stepping stone to set up the dream scenario for everybody, except you. It's Sean Strickland's career, Sean Strickland's life. He's here to cause an upset. However he's got to do it, he will do it. Doesn't matter whether it's ugly, doesn't matter whether you enjoy it or not, doesn't matter whether it fits the UFC narrative. Sean Strickland is here to get his arm raised against Pereira. I believe he's got too many all-round MMA skills that if he gets in there and does what he needs to do and makes it an MMA fight, drags him to the ground, makes him uncomfortable, I think he wins it and wins it convincingly. And now you've got a whole media day of arguments with Adesanya, which means that Adesanya wants to beat the crap out of him. So that fight is easy to make now. He will get a title fight on Sunday morning. You watch, Sean Strickland will walk straight.
I mean, that's all well and good, Nick. That's all well and good. And he is the better, more skilled, martial artist. He's got more ways to win. He's got submissions. He's got some sweeps. He's got confidence. He's got a win streak, but he doesn't have any wrestling. And having all that jiu-jitsu in the world, if you can't get him down to the mat, doesn't mean anything. He can wrestle, of course, and I'm sure he's been drilling a lot. There's got to be an essential part of the game plan coming into this one. But it is kind of his weak link. You know, the takedowns aren't the best, or they're good enough to get him down. And essentially, I think you are right, Nick. That's what this fight comes. Because if he can't take him down, I don't see him beating him on the feet. Right? So if you can't take him down, I think Alex wins. If he does take him down, I think Sean mauls him down there, to be quite frank.
Yeah. For people that are just joining the stream, the weigh-ins, there's nobody on the scales at the moment in Las Vegas, but we've had quite a fair few fighters through this first half an hour. Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier, Alex and Max Holloway have all weighed in. The title fights are done, dusted, ready to rock and roll. So you're going to be catching them on the main card from 3 a.m. on BT Sport 1. Don't forget the prelims get going from 1. Other fight that I've no doubt that you are interested in. You're interested in every fighter, I know you are, but the ones that we get a bit of social media tap on, people like Sean O'Malley, Pedro Munoz. We're still waiting for Robbie Lawler on that main card. And, of course, we've just been speaking about Sean Strickland. He came through. And Alex Pereira. That's who we're waiting for at the moment. We've had a little bit of a glitch, so I apologise if I've missed some of the fighters that have been on the scales and weighed in. I think I missed about 3 or 4. But Cowboy and Jim Miller came through, as did Ian Gary. I know there's a lot of Irish fans watching this, and his opponent Gabe Green as well. So those fights are done, dusted, and in the books. It was Hall of Fame night last night, boys. Well, obviously you were out and about drinking pina colada, but obviously people were getting their new jackets fitted last night. DC, your pal, and Khabib Nurmagomedov making it into the Hall of Fame. Wondrous night. The stars came out. Here they are getting their jackets, the boys. Mike, from your point of view, obviously, when this happened, I know that you don't enter a career thinking, I want to get to the Hall of Fame. But when it happens, when you're acknowledged by your peers, when you're acknowledged by the business, what's that feeling like?
Yeah, to be honest, in terms of my fighting career, other than winning the belt and defending it in Manchester, this is one of the highlights. You know, when I was younger, you know, all I cared about was my fighting ability, to be honest, and I never thought it would take me to where it has, and I would never have achieved the things that I have done. So to be recognised by the #1 fighting organisation that ever existed, because that's what the UFC is. There's no one that's ever done it bigger or better. Boxing, whatever it is, the UFC is the #1. To be in the Hall of Fame, to be recognised for my fighting abilities. If I'd have said that to that young 16-year-old that were always getting in scraps, I don't think he would have believed you. For DC and Khabib, come on, I mean, listen, it was obvious. I mean, 2 of the greatest that we've ever seen. DC, a double champ. He's a champion commentator. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he still gives a lot to the sport now and still coaches a lot of youth wrestling programs and things like that. You know, he's a big part of this sport. So that was obvious. And then, of course, come on, we've got Khabib Nurmagomedov, the GOAT, the eagle, you know, undefeated, retired on top, the only man to ever do so. Yeah, it was an absolute shoe-in right from the get-go.
No, you're right. Shoe-in for both of those guys to be in there. What did you make, Nick, of DC's speech where he admitted that he was leaning on the towel in Buffalo?
Towelgate.
Like, whoa, what are you doing?
Did he really?
Yeah, he went in.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see this.
He made the confession that he was, in fact, hanging on the towel out in Buffalo when he was defending. So that was very controversial. I hear that Charles Oliveira wasn't too happy, to be honest. Maybe 1 or 2 others. But listen, he's retired now. He's Hall of Fame now. They can't take it away from him.
He doesn't care, mate. He's where he's at.
I'll defend him. I'll defend him. At that moment in time, right, when you cut weight, it's the most horrible, disgusting process. You're on the verge of death. And when you go out there and you're trying to weigh in, if you can game the system, if you can bloody well cheat or whatever it is, you got to do that. That's up to the commission and I'll be honest, all the staff that are around there to monitor it and make sure that you're not. And if they don't realize that he's resting his arms on a towel, which are his arms are being supported, going to make him lighter, then that's their problem. If I'm DC, I would have done the exact same bloody thing. And they would have said, oi, you cheeky beggar. What are you doing? Get your arms off that towel. I was like, all right, okay, fair enough.
You'll love the speech when you watch it back, Mike, because he makes a reference to Mark Ratner, who sat in the crowd. He said, I wouldn't have got away with that with you, Mark.
Exactly.
It's true. It's true.
Listen, I know we're laughing. It should have been picked up on. You're right to say that, Mike, about the commission, the people that were in charge. DC's doing DC. It's down to the commissions and the people, the authorities that were in charge of that weigh-in to have monitored it properly. They obviously didn't, and he got away with one by 1.5 pounds. I just found him straight in on his speech yesterday. Yeah, I might have leaned on it. I might have done. And then the pictures come up on the big screen. Anyway, congratulations to him. Congratulations to Habib for hitting the Hall of Fame. A fantastic, fantastic achievement. Having that accolade. I know that, like you've just said there, Mike, you start this to obviously become the best fighter in the world. Achieving that is the thing. But then to be acknowledged by your peers, by the business, and all that is the cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, to go out there and have a good career like these guys did. Well, legendary careers. And then to end it all, to cap it all off when you retire with the Hall of Fame. It's just nice to be appreciated and to get that respect and just to have, I don't know, to have the company, if you will, just to pay homage to your career and what you gave up and what you sacrificed. Of course, we do it for our own reasons. We do it for financial reasons. But still, it's always nice to get that appreciation, and to go down in history, if you will. Come on, Nick.
Is the jacket?
We're going down in history, boys.
Is the jacket with you in Cancun, Mike?
Jacket's
Is it on holiday with you?
I never leave home without it.
Listen, we've got a new game coming up in a minute for the weigh-in show. This has been dreamt up by our executive producer, Max Bentley. It's called Agree or Disagree. I'll bring it in a minute, but basically it's a series of statements all connected to the UFC that have appeared on this show at some point in the first 6 months of this year. They might have come out of your mouth, Mike. They might have come out of your mouth, Nick. All right? Now, the point of the game is to see whether you still agree or disagree with the statement that was made previous. All right? Whether your opinions have maybe changed in that period of time.
So whether or not you're just trying to figure out if I'm most of the time just waffling utter nonsense that I forget about a week later and then will argue against myself and say, no, Nick must have said because that's stupid. And he went, no, Michael, you said that. And you were very adamant about it at the time.
Yes. Listen, the due diligence of this particular game he's gone to the next level because you know that Max obviously listens not only to this particular show that he produces, but he also listens to the Believe You Me podcast. He listens to all your stuff online, Mike. He listens to all mine and Nick's stuff as well. And he's even gone into your own personal channels to find the stuff that you've said on your own personal networks to put into this game. All right? So
I have been contradictory at times. I got pulled on it on a live
Me too.
the week. Because I think I picked, I forget who it was, Max Holloway on this one, and then I picked Volkanovski on another one, and people are like, this guy's contradicting himself. And I'm like, yeah, it's called a close fight. It's called so close. My analytics, my data, when I research and look at the fight, I form a different opinion with my hypothesis.
I did the same. I hedged my bets too, Mike.
Yeah. That's the beauty. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of you two. You're working for that many different outlets. You can always tell people, I told you so. Hang on a minute. I listened to you on this network and you said this. Nah, man. If you listen to me on this network, you'd have got it right.
Correct.
Fair play to you. Well, there's loads on here. There's loads. I'll bring them into a minute. First and foremost, though, we're going to take a tiny little bit of a break because obviously Caroline Pearce is on the ground in Las Vegas, and she's been catching up with fighters throughout the whole course of the week. Loads of this is available on the BT Sport YouTube channel. She's been speaking yesterday in the immediate aftermath of the press conference to Israel Adesanya, and she was asking him questions about the possibility of fighting Alex Pereira. This is what he had to say.
Before I talk about that, I'd be remiss not to mention Alex Pereira, who everyone is talking about the storyline this week. For those that don't know, you have a history with kickboxing where he's beaten you twice, and he's using that to suggest that he might be able to do so, or wants that fight with you here in the UFC, to which you've had words of your own to say you want to drive these MMA gloves through his face.
Yep.
Give us a bit of background there and the storyline there. Well,
the storyline there is it's the same. The first fight, I felt I won the fight. The judges gave it to him because I beat him. But the second fight, I was beating him, and then I made a judgment error when I had him on skates. I didn't find my shot. I just spammed right hands, which was on my part from being young and influenced by outside forces. But and then he beat me after being down 2 rounds, knocked me out, and then he got the victory in his hometown. So that was a beautiful story for him. But the story doesn't end there. He wants to carry on the story. I mean, how do you beat someone, supposedly beat them twice, but you're still chasing them? Because they're winning. Yeah. So he knows I'm the guy, and this is different. This is not kickboxing. I'm not a brute like him. I'm smart, and I'm tactical. So, and he's been beaten before as well. So I know how to beat him, and I can do it. I know I can do it. And I've used UFC 92 as an example with Rampage and Vanderlei. So I'm going to ensure I have the last laugh. I know so.
Is it personal?
Nah, it's not personal. I was never even looking for this rematch. I didn't care. You never saw me once mention him. But I never watched any of his kickboxing fights. I never really cared because he's nobody. But I know every time I fought, from the get-go of my UFC career, every time I fought, I bet you he's sitting there tuned in.
Izzy speaking to Caroline Pierce this week in Las Vegas. He says it's not personal, but there's got to be an element of it, hasn't it, Nick? There's got to be an element of that, especially when everybody's talking about this is the dude that sparked you. There's got to be an element of that ego connected to wanting to fight this guy.
I don't know whether that's. I don't know whether that's Izzy's style. To be honest with you, I think Pereira's chasing him more than Izzy needs Pereira. I think Pereira's been having to rush his MMA career to try and get to Izzy. Nobody else beats him in MMA. Let's be honest. He's been given a fast track here. Otherwise, he can't get through the top 10 legitimately because he won't make it. So they've fast tracked him through. They're trying to get him to Adesanya as soon as possible, just to give Adesanya a different look, just to create a different narrative. Izzy doesn't need this guy. Izzy's self-made. He's crossed over from this sport. He's not just a UFC champion. I think he's crossed over very much into the mainstream of popular culture as well. So Pereira needs Izzy way more than Izzy needs Pereira. That's a fact. But obviously, if the guy's going to get there, cool, man. I think he'll get it.
Izzy does not need Alex Pereira. It is the last thing that he wants. He does not need the bogeyman, his kryptonite, the guy that beat him twice. And listen, of course, he doesn't need him. He doesn't want him to exist. He doesn't want him in the building. He doesn't want him signed with the UFC. He does not want him in a goddamn cage with him, right? And of course, Izzy's gone off and done incredible things, an absolutely legendary career. And of course, Pereira's looking at him, seeing the success and thinking, I can beat that guy because I've done it twice. And styles make fights. Pereira's not going to take him down. This is going to be a kickboxing fight. And of course, Izzy can sit there and say they were close fights and say that he should have won. And he can say that I'm a better guy, I'm strategic, he's a brute. And I agree with Izzy there. Izzy is far more tactical and strategic, and Pereira is a little wild. But in those wild exchanges, you do get caught, just like he caught Izzy and put him to sleep. So he's going to say that. He's going to try and dismiss him. He's going to try and play down the threat because he's a proud man. Izzy takes his career very, very seriously. Blessed, fortunate position. And he's better than all these other people. But right now, there's a threat. There is a real serious threat of someone that could take this away from him. Yeah. And he's taking that very personally. You can see from his demeanor. He's not playing. He's not smiling. He's not making jokes. He's deadly serious when he's dismissing him.
Yeah.
They've got to do the business this weekend to make that fight happen, haven't they? So fingers crossed they both do, and we head in that particular direction. Right, are you ready for a quick one on agree or disagree before somebody else hits the scales? We'll make this nice and easy.
I want to rename this competition. Shall we make a fool out of Mike and Nick?
No, not at all. I think every single one of us actually may have said this at the start of the year on our predictions program when we were doing the awards ceremony. Islam Makhachev will be the lightweight champion by the end of the year. Do we still, 6 months into the year, agree or disagree? Mike, go first.
I disagree. I don't think he's going to capture the belt by the end of the year.
Okay. Nick?
I'm going to go with agree. I'm going to go with, I think he gets his shot before the end of the year, and I think he becomes UFC champion before the year is out. But it could be November, December time. It could be literally last card of the year. But I think he's going to do it.
Vacant title shot then, won't it, versus Charles Oliveira. It's interesting that we've been speaking to quite a few guys in this division, and this division, Nick, as you say, it's just ridiculous. There's 30, 40 fighters that are absolutely legit at 155 pounds. And the more that we speak to him, for example, we had a little chat with Rafael Fiziev, we spoke to Arman Sarukian, a couple of other guys recently, and a lot of them believe that Islam Makhachev will be the next champ. And when they get their opportunity, Fiziev, for example, he believes that he'll be fighting someone like Islam Makhachev. Nick, that was an interesting conversation because he's all on the Islam train.
Yeah, they all seem to be, and I think they can see that he's coming with real momentum, and they see that. I think people, though, are looking past the fact that because Charles lost the belt on the scales, they think that's a glitch in the matrix. They think there's a way to beat him or whatever now. But let's not forget what he did when he got inside that octagon. He absolutely punished Jake Gaethje. So I think Charles Oliveira, for me, is absolutely the best lightweight on the planet right now. But it's about opportunity. And when Islam gets his opportunity, I think he takes it.
Is Uriah Hall looking supreme?
186 pounds, the official weight. For
I have more stats.
Here he is. Go on then.
Just going back to my little stat table of best chins and worst chins. You know who's got the 5th worst chin statistically in the UFC?
What a stat! The 5th worst chin in UFC history. Go on. Is it Uriah Hall?
It's Charlie Olives. The Olive era has to come to an end point because the man gets dropped all the time. And now I'm bringing it back to the case in point, to the original question. Yeah, that's why they're all saying Islam Makhachev, because he has almost a flawless performance every time he goes out there. Oliveira is wowing everybody and getting everyone on the feet, and he's the champ, and he's on this incredible run that maybe this is the absolute peak of his career, but he almost loses every single fight, so I think that's definitely got to play into the fact why everyone says it's going to be Islam when he finally gets the shot.
All these incredible stats that you're hitting us with today, Mike. Now I know how your kids got some pocket money for their holidays. They pulled in stats for Dad. They were doing shifts.
No, this is my my thumbnail designer on my YouTube channel. He's after a Pereira as the cheapest god.
I saw, who did I see speaking about this week? It might actually have been Alexander Volkanovski talking about open scoring, and this is something that has just come up on Max's new game. UFC should adopt open scoring. Agree or disagree? Nick, first.
Who said that? I don't remember us ever saying that.
Well, it could have come from Mike's personal channel. Might have come from there. It might have come from something
you,
that Alexander...
Well, I disagree.
I disagree as well. I don't remember any of us saying this. I don't remember anyone advocating open score. And
this
I think Max
is executive producer Max. Yeah. To be fair, I did see Alexander Volkanovski give an interview on this week, and he said that
Rogan's been talking about it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So go on. You disagree? You disagree?
But Rogan's never
disagree.
Inside an octagon. He can talk about it a lot, and he's a martial artist and he knows the sport, but he's never been in there. And I feel that if we had open scoring, do you know what we're going to miss? Yes, there's all the arguments. Maybe the fighters would get complacent. Maybe if they're ahead, they would step off the gas. I don't believe that would be the case necessarily, although you would see a few examples of that. But there's a big moment for the crowd at home, for the fighters themselves, the cornermen, the crowd in attendance, when it's a good fight, a close fight. Those moments when Bruce Buffer's there, new or still, I mean, that is the edge of your seat stuff. And you're taking away all that suspense. I mean, that's the big reveal. That's the grand finale at the end of the night, a pay-per-view. You know, that's the best moment there after it's been an epic fight. And if you already know, it's like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. Volkanovski's won 3-2, so who cares? I'll meet you in the car park because I want to beat the traffic. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of going to be the mentality of a lot of people.
Yeah,
completely agree.
I think Volkanovski's take on it, I mean, he was in agreement with you. His take on it this week was your corner should know how to score a fight, and therefore they should be able to give you the right instructions. And that's what he was referring to. He was referring to the second fight with Max, and therefore his corner gave him the right instructions to change the fight up in the third. Obviously, apply more pressure. That didn't work, and then obviously go for a more wrestling-based game plan. That's what he's referring to. I'm against it. It's not for me, man. Like you said, the magic of the not knowing. That moment at the end when they reveal the winner, that is something obviously fans are absolutely well and truly into.
Don't forget as well, if a fighter knows he's a couple of rounds up, what's to stop him just doing a Roadrunner act in the final rounds? See, he's not going to engage. He's going to go, right, I've won the first 2 rounds. As long as I don't get engaged now, I just won't get involved. And he could just run away. And I just think it's incredibly dangerous to introduce open scoring. And I remember when boxing introduced open scoring in amateur boxing a few years ago. It was a complete and utter car crash. It just did not work, and it came out as quickly as it came in.
Cool.
As I said, just back to that point what you said about Volkanovski saying is the corners should know how to score a fight. And he's absolutely right. They should. But unfortunately, we have a flawed system in place that was inherited from the boxing world. As I said last week, myself, Laura Sanko, DC, Cruz, Felder, all the commentators, John Anik, we all sat down for a full day, 9 hours in the Apex with the commission, with referees, with judges. We judged our own fights. We all judged fights. We all kind of judge them bloody differently, you know, and I think the idea was to get us to lay off their back a little bit, do you know what I mean, with the judging. Mm-hmm. But they went through, and I've got stats here, baby. Oh, my God, you can't see them, but I took so many notes, it'll make your bloody head spin. The reality is, it is kind of a flawed system, and they admitted that. For example, you know, if somebody gets hit in the groin, we have 5 minutes. If it's an eye poke, there isn't 5 minutes. And that comes from boxing, because when you got a boxing glove on, you can't really poke somebody in the eye the same way. You know what I mean? And that's just absolutely ridiculous. So they were very open to hearing our suggestions, our critique of the current judging system. And we made some suggestions. They're going to go away. They're going to take them on board. They're going to raise them at the next commission meeting. So it was a very... it was just a good day, and we're going to do this a lot, and they want to change and tweak things. So to Volkanovski's point, we should know how to score it. Yeah, the problem is a lot of the judges are still working on a boxing system.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is actually really good. I think the unified scoring criteria is really good for mixed martial arts, and it helps out people like us, obviously, who work in this game, and it helps fans understand what judges are looking for when they're scoring a fight. The only thing that I would take on, and maybe Nick's got an opinion on this as well coming from the world of boxing, is that 10-point must system, where a really close round, for example, can be scored 10-9, and an absolute shellacking can also be scored a 10-9 in boxing, that is. I know that there's different criteria in mixed martial arts to obviously push stuff towards 10-8s and 10-7s. I just think there should be a more clearer criteria to be able to score rounds with wider gaps, rather than something really, really close and someone who absolutely wins that round, those rounds being scored the exact same way, 10-9. I just think there should be a more clearer way of being able to make those gaps wider. Rather than nick around 10-9 and win around easy 10-9, there should be a bigger gap, I think.
Yeah, I think the only issue that I hear what you're saying exactly, you know, and that is a real issue. The problem we've got with MMA, of course, is that most fights are three rounds only. It's not like boxing where you can award to give people more points for being outclassing somebody, let's say, in a single round, because chances are you got 10 or 12 of them for it to ensure that you've got a winner. In MMA, if you give someone, you know, one round by, say, 2 points, then that person narrowly loses 2 rounds. You're going to see a massive increase in draws. And draws are the last thing we want. You know, we don't want people going round in circles constantly. It's always nice to have a winner. Nobody wants a draw when two guys have done a fight camp or girls have done a fight camp for 8 weeks. You want to have a conclusive ending to that. So I think that's why we've stayed away from scoring too much in the middle of rounds. But you're right. A lot of judges who I speak to now say we are openly encouraged to score more 10-8 rounds because of that very point. You know, if someone wins a round by a considerable margin, you've got to reward them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was one of the things we spoke about again, because a 10-9 round is a very even round, but one guy has one strike more. If you read the actual verbiage, the breakdown of how they score it, a 10-9 is a close round. A dominant round where one guy dominates the round is a 10-8. It used to be, and I still think a lot of people believe, that you have to almost kill the guy or the girl, and you have to batter them from pillar to post and almost finish them for it to be a 10-8. No, it just as you watch that, you can clearly see that guy won. Those kind of rounds that I just spoke about, the dominating, the viciously dominating rounds, they're supposed to be scored 10-7s. And if by introducing these different scores, then you are going to get a bigger chance. Because as you said, if it's all 10-9, 10, you know, or you take a point away, there's lots of draws. But if one round somebody can get 3 points ahead, but then the next guy can get ahead 2, you know what I mean? You got more interesting ways of scoring the fight. So they need to introduce more, a wider scoring range, including 10-7s.
Yeah, I agree. It's good though that they're having the conversation, Mike. You know, I mean, listen, we come from the world of boxing a lot, and we try to have this conversation a lot with a lot of people, and they are not interested in the conversation, not interested in moving forward, not interested in making it better. Whereas it seems, from what you're saying there, people are interested in making it better and moving forward.
No, they definitely are. And this is why it's an important factor, because when we were talking to the commission, they said the number one criteria, they look for the 3 Ds, the damage, duration, and the dominance. But the damage comes over everything else. That is the number one thing. So let's just say it's a 3-round fight. First 2 rounds are kind of close, but one guy gets ahead, 10-9. So one guy's 2 points ahead. That means the guy, even though those rounds are kind of close, the guy that's on the losing end cannot win in the 3rd round unless he goes out there, batters him, and gets a 10-7. And he should win that fight, because if he almost finishes it, if he mangles his face, he breaks his nose, he busts his lip, he almost chokes him out, and he just batters him from pillar to post, I'd say he won that fight. But under the current scoring criteria, because the other guy got 2 points ahead in the first 2 rounds, even though he didn't really get that much of an advantage, he would win that fight.
Yeah. Hopefully, there's going to be progression on that. Look at us getting deep. Correct. Normally, we're just like throwing abuse at each other, but we got deep. I like it, lads. Well done.
But they're going to say, so Bisping, that means you should have lost the Anderson Silva fight. And I'm like, rules didn't apply then, knobhead.
So long, suckers.
I was playing to the
scorecards. Right, still on agree or disagree. This has popped up a couple of times, and I know that, Mike, you've done this personally. We've definitely done this as well. Michael Chandler should be Conor McGregor's comeback opponent. Agree or disagree? Michael Bisping.
I mean, it depends. Do you want him to win or lose? In terms of excitement, I will say I agree. In terms of me being Conor's manager, I'd say no. We're sidestepping that bad boy all day long. If Michael Chandler's going to take that fight, he's going to have to beef up a few pounds and get up to 170, because Conor ain't making 155 anytime soon. But for the sake of the game, do I agree or disagree? I remember saying this. I agree, baby.
Nick?
Disagree. Absolutely. Only one way to go. Only one way to go. New York City, Madison Square Garden, Jorge Masvidal, dust off the BMF belt. Let's go, baby. All day.
There you go. Does make a lot of sense. To be fair, either are really good, aren't they? They are really good. But Michael Chandler is probably the one with a bit more of the... what's the word I'm looking for?
A bit more
He's still got ambitions.
Dana White privilege, indeed, yeah. Masvidal McGregor makes way more money, with all due respect to Michael Chandler, than Chandler versus McGregor. Because Chandler McGregor's a hard sell to McGregor fans. Chandler's no joke, man. And that's not to say Masvidal's a joke, but Masvidal's at a different place right now. I just think the Chandler fight doesn't feel right. I think Masvidal, that's something I think fans would absolutely buy into, get behind, pull that belt back out. And it's part of this almost a bit of a Legends series, isn't it? You know, you put it in the same bracket as the Diaz brothers and whatever else. So it makes most sense to me.
Yeah, and then stylistically as well, between Masvidal and Conor, I mean, that's going to be a really, really fun fight, as would Michael Chandler. But Chandler's an incredible wrestler. Look at that double leg that he hit Tony Ferguson with last time out. He bloody launched him halfway across the bloody octagon. They went airborne for, a couple of seconds there, and that's what he would do. Now, Conor's got good takedown defense. It wasn't easy for Khabib to take him down, but there is a path to victory there for Michael Chandler. Masvidal, Conor McGregor, on the feet, two big names, two trash talkers, two guys that know how to sell a fight, two guys that are supremely confident in their own abilities, and two guys that are going to stand there and swing. Oh, take my money.
Exactly.
Mike, you're going to love this one because I know who said this. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a bigger threat to the welterweight division than Khamzat Chimaev. Agree or disagree,
Well,
Mike?
that sounds like Nick Peet all day long, doesn't it? No, you should have said it like this, mate, right? Shavkat Rakhmonov, mate, is a bigger threat than bloody... I nearly swore there, because whenever I do a scouser, I always have to throw in the neck on it. Yeah, that's Nick Peet all day long. Disagree.
Correct.
You disagree. What you say,
mate? I agree, and I stand by it right now. After his performance of the week against Neil Magny, come on, man. If you're not on my Shavkat train by now, what is the matter with you? The guy is going to be welterweight champion. We all know it. He stopped every single fight he's ever had. He's never been out of round 2. Of course, he's the biggest threat, new threat to the whole welterweight division. He's going to be a superstar. He's going to be the champion. Get on board, everybody.
There you go, Mike. There you go. Shavkat.
Well,
it's a great fight, that, though, isn't it?
I mean,
Shavkat versus Khamzat.
Listen, you are correct, Nick, in what you say and getting the results. And Neil Magny was a decent step up, and Neil Magny's kind of like the gatekeeper to the big boys, if you will, which isn't an insult. Yeah. It's actually a compliment if you break it down. But there's a big difference these days between Neil Magny and Gilbert Burns. You know what I mean? And up until Gilbert Burns, Khamzat had just, come on. You cannot even compare the dominance. I mean, what Khamzat did. Come on, brother. Do I need to remind you? Picking him up, chatting to Dana, not taking a significant strike. You know what I mean? Shavkat's good. But let's see if Shavkat can still maintain that dominance when he's fighting somebody in the top 5. And that will be a real eye-opener. And I believe that he will, Nick, to your point, because he is that good.
Khamzat, though, let's not be honest. Listen, with all due respect to Khamzat, and I'm a huge Khamzat fan. I've got myself a Smash Brothers hat and everything. I'm all in. I'm signing a team.
That's what because Darren Till gave it to you and forced you to wear it on the show one day.
Correct. To your point, though, Khamzat prior to Gilbert Burns had beat who exactly? Nobody really. Whereas Shavkat, I thought, had beaten better guys up until that point. Yes, that win over Gilbert Burns is massive, of course. But the fight was 2-1. It was tough. It was close. The third round, Khamzat really had to dig deep and show us something he's not had to show in the UFC before. That's not a knock on the guy. Man, we know he's got it. We know he's got the minerals to dig out a win. All I'm saying is, we ain't seen that yet from Shavkat. Maybe because it's on a different level.
All right.
Look at him.
All right, relax. You know,
I'm surprised you didn't pull out one of them raccoon hats. Get one of them raccoon hats on like Shavkat's got. That's what I thought you'd have been wearing, pal. Sorry,
next question. I've done well here. I'm standing
Go
by
on, Mike.
everything
What have you got here
previously.
Now? There we go. Little Shavkat hat. To my microphone.
Now, who said this? Right? I can't remember Nick saying this, so this must be you, Bisping. All right? Umar Nurmagomedov will be better than Khabib.
Yeah. Max
Yeah.
Bentley has been prowling the Bisping YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed and rang the bell, suggest you do so. Reason being, and I did say that, he has all the potential because I think he has. I mean, he certainly seems to be almost as dominant in the grappling department as Khabib. He has the support of Khabib. He has the formula to train, the same kind of background. But then when you look at the striking of him, it's on another level from Khabib. You know what I mean? And that's not being disrespectful. Khabib used his striking. It was good enough to set up his grappling. Umar Nurmagomedov can beat people on the feet. I mean, his kicking game is unbelievable. So I don't know if he's going to replicate the legendary GOAT status that Khabib did, but he certainly has the ingredients to do so. And if you're going to get people to click, you got to say something sensational. Let's be honest.
Look at you, eh? He knows. He knows what he's doing. What do you reckon, Nick?
I think, to Mike's point, listen, I don't think he becomes as big a star as Khabib became, because Khabib had that stoic personality, and then once you got past that facade and got to know him and spoke to him, which we were all fortunate enough to do, you find out that he actually has got a wicked personality behind it as well. He's a sports nut. He's a football fanatic. And he's just a really engaging character and someone that's incredibly nice to be around as well. He's fun. And that's not to say Umar isn't, but there's two elements which are going to hold Umar back. One, he's a lot smaller than Khabib was. And the smaller you are, the more you go down the weight divisions, the harder it is to make as big an impact on the sport and make the kind of money and generate the kind of eyeballs that people do in higher weight classes. It's testament to how big a star Khabib is, that it was able to become that bigger star as a lightweight. The other element not worth forgetting here is dance partner, man. Khabib had the ultimate dance partner. The biggest ticket in the game was standing in the opposing corner. It's like Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. He had Conor to bounce off. He was the white knight against naughty old Conor, who was throwing Solly through bus windows and getting up to all kinds of mischief, but generating more eyeballs on the sport than ever before. And then along came this very quiet, very religious, very down-to-earth, but absolute assassin that was able to bounce off him, that yin and yang, where they had lightning in a bottle. And by beating Conor, Khabib became an absolute global superstar in his own community and outside of it as well. I don't know whether Umar's going to have those kind of opponents to allow him to have that kind of career. But to Mike's point, this kid is good enough to win belts in multiple weight divisions, something Khabib never managed to do. So Mike might be right.
Well, that was a very eloquent and elaborate way of disagreeing with me and saying that I say sensationalist stuff on my YouTube channel. However, the question and the statement wasn't who would win a popularity contest down the line. The statement was about who potentially may have better skills in the octagon. He may be better than Khabib. It wasn't who's more famous, who's going to sign more autographs.
When you say better,
pound for pound, skill against skill, and Umar may pip him to the post, Nick.
It's much more. You know this better than anyone. Getting into that Hall of Fame is much more than having a record. You've got to cross over in this sport. You've got to become a pay-per-view star. Khabib has done that. Will Umar ever do that? I don't know, man. But what Umar might do is win multiple belts in multiple weight divisions.
Hey,
I agree with you, but I disagree with you.
It was about his skill, but whatever. Let's not go on.
Listen, a little bit of action going on in Las Vegas. As you can see, we might be getting somebody else on the scales. For people that are just joining the stream, we're an hour and 10 minutes in.
One half of a featured bout on the pay-per-view main card in the middleweight division, Alex Pereira.
Here we go. Alex Pereira is coming our way. We've already had Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier, Alex Volkanovski, and Max Holloway through, just in case you're just joining the stream. They've all weighed in. The title fights are there. Let's see where Alex Pereira is at in the middleweight division.
You know, when I was back in Singapore, the UFC 275.
184.5, the official weight for Alex
Light.
Pereira.
Easy.
Obviously, Glover Teixeira was the main event. So we sat down, we spoke to him about his fight, and Alex Pereira came up because coaching him, he's kind of mentoring him and taking him under his wing. And we all know Glover can hang with the best of them on the feet as well. And he said, I have never trained with anyone that has the stand-up ability of Alex Pereira. He said he is amazing. So obviously that's high praise indeed. And of course he's coaching him and he's cornering him.
Yeah.
So, you support and you say those things, and he's trying to hype him up as well. But still, as I say, very, extremely high praise from Glover Teixeira there.
Wow. There you go. Set for an unbelievable fight. Him and Sean Strickland. And a lot of people are saying that the winner of that.
I never knew Glover had said that, so I'd like to change my pick. I'd like to now go with over Strickland. Mike had inside information I wasn't aware of.
I mean, to be fair, he does have a guy like Glover Teixeira who's got some of the best grappling in the whole of mixed martial arts.
Exactly.
Trying to take him down and submit him on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Talk about having the number one built-in coach, training partner, friend, ticks all the boxes. As a mixed martial artist, you only need one good training partner, and it doesn't get much better than Glover Teixeira. And certainly when you've already got the skills on the feet, you've just got to round out everything else. In terms of jiu-jitsu, takedowns, grappling, single legs, experience, the mindset, being there, done it, T-shirt buying. Yeah, Glover's the man.
As you can see, we're taking your questions, taking your interaction on the show. You're more than welcome to get involved on all the social media platforms. Don't forget, BT Sport 1 is your destination for UFC 276. 1 o'clock, the prelims get underway, early hours of Sunday morning. 3 o'clock is when that main card gets cracking. A little later on tonight, gents, I'm sure you're aware of this, there's a press conference for Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. First time that they will go nose to nose, have a little bit of a look into each other's eyes. And I bet you it's going to be one of those moments for Leon Edwards, Nick, where he pinches himself a touch because he's been waiting for God knows how long for the opportunity to be at the top table for the UFC Welterweight World Championship. And this is going down August 20th in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, and it's unusual that Leon's having to fly. I think he's in Vegas for the presser as well. He's having to fly to the side of the world basically to announce the fight. But for him, I think he'll need that. He needs to know it's finally here. He needs to actually be able to look Kamaru in the eyes and be like, okay, this is not just talk anymore. It's finally going to happen, and I'm going to be ready. And he's been ready for a long time. Leon Edwards, his opportunity is overdue. He knows that. We know that. Everybody in the sport knows that. And he's just got to be ready now for August the 20th, Salt Lake City. That's what he's been waiting for. I think he's the toughest test out there for Kamaru right now as well.
I totally agree, Nick. I really think he is. Hold on, there's Macy Barber.
Yep.
The future. Ernie and Gary should have a fight off for that one.
126, the official weight for Macy Barber.
Yeah. No, for Leon, I mean, if you look at him on the feet, listen, everyone loves to bring up that 5th round punch that Nate landed on him. So what? He was absolutely dominating Nate Diaz. He was embarrassing him. It was one-way traffic. And look at what he did to Bilal Muhammad. Granted, the fight ended very, very short and prematurely, sadly. But Bilal Muhammad ragdolls people. That's what he does. He gets a hold of you. He uses his strength and his wrestling ability and ragdolls people. Look what he did to Vicente Luque. And was it the second round that Bilal and Leon ended in? I think it was the second round.
Yes.
The eye poke, was yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you look at that fight and how that was going, that if you're in the corner of Leon Edwards, if you're Team Edwards, which we all are, that gives you a lot of confidence coming into this Kamaru fight. Because we know on the feet, the footwork, the strike, the precision, the accuracy, the combinations, the range, the distance management, all the rest of it is always tip-top. And then now, of course, the takedown defense is catching up with it as well. It's a very, very tough fight. Listen, he's a far superior striker than Colby Covington. And Colby Covington was having some success on the feet. Very straight shots, straight down the line, A to B, fast. Yeah. Who knows, I believe, he's in for a tough test.
It's going to be a cracker. Just a quick one. I've had an update now from our production team because we did have glitches right at the start of the weigh-in show. There was a few glitches with our feed from Las Vegas, so we missed a couple of people weighing in. I can tell you that we've just seen Macy Barber come through. We're waiting for Robbie Lawler, Jalen Turner, and Sean Strickland. They're the 3 fighters. Only 3 to go. So the ones that we must have missed were Brad Tavares. We missed Jessica Rai and Julia Stolarienko. So there you go. That's who we're waiting for: Lawler, Turner, and Strickland. Whilst
Turner's
we
an
are
interesting
waiting,
one, Mike. Just on Turner, he's, what is he, 6'3" and a lightweight, Mike? You've trained with Jalen. You've been around him. He's obviously made a real push in this lightweight division. He's one of, Adam described earlier, the not 10 that are capable of breaking into the top 10, Jalen Turner. But he is 6'3". He is absolutely massive for this weight division. It must be a horrific cut for him.
Do you know what? I don't think it is. I think he makes it relatively easy. I mean, if you look at Adesanya, always comes in light. I trained with him. He helped me prepare for many fights. He's a great guy. I'm very high on his ability. His striking is unbelievable. I've never asked him about the cut, but to be honest, he's never brought it up. He's never mentioned that this is torture for him. So I think he does make it relatively easy. And the man's on a bloody ridiculous run right now. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 wins in a row, all by stoppage. Of course, he lost to Matt Frivola. He got caught. He stepped up to 170 on short notice against Vicente Luque. Was doing very good until he got clipped. But back in his proper weight class, and he's found his mojo. He's settled down. Listen, California is, everyone thinks, it's sunshine and rainbows. He's from a tough part. He's from the Inland Empire, San Bernardino, not a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? And the opportunity here to change his life. Do you know what I mean? So there's the amount of pressure that fighters are under. Do you know what I mean? I think he struggled with that a little bit, but now he's got used to not so much the spotlight, but dealing with the pressure and the fact that maybe now he is here to stay. In your first couple of fights, it's like, oh God, I'm not going to lose. If I lose, I'm going to be, I'm going to blow my only shot. But now he's comfortable, and I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing him do so well. And this is a tremendous fight. And listen, he could be a future champion down the line as well. Obviously, the wrestling might cost him, but he's that good.
Yeah.
We've had a few questions coming in from people watching the show, so thank you very much for participating in the program. You just need to hit us up in the various social media channels that BT Sport have. Who in the middleweight division today would Prime Bisping most want to test his skills against, and who would you least like to be in there with? Mike, yours.
Least like Marvin Vettori. Just because Marvin Vettori seems like this big bad wolf, but he's a sweetheart of a guy, and I've sat down with him. We have a mutual friend there, Domenico, owns his restaurant, in County. And anytime I'm in there, I always see Marvin Vettori. And the owner of the restaurant always gives us the food for free. Maybe that is why I go there, because I know that. But I often see Marvin Vettori in there. We sit down, we spend Christmas Eve together with our families and whatnot. He's a sweetheart of a guy, and he's a beast in the octagon. So I'll sidestep that one all day.
155.5, the official weight for Jalen Turner.
Jalen Turner.
Lean is a word. Lean is one word. I'm trying to be polite, but he looks ill. He looks so skinny there. My God.
Jeez.
Looks like a gust of wind would snap him in half, let's be honest. Most like to fight Israel Adesanya, bro, because I'm always looking for the biggest challenges, Adam. I really want to test myself, bro, against the champion.
Chris Weidman's still knocking about, Mike. Why did you and Weidman never end up fighting? There was a crossover there.
Do you know what? That's a good point. And it's one of those fights that always got away, and I don't think I never got an email to be matched up with him. I was matched up with a few others like Robert Whittaker, stuff like that. And it just never, for one reason or another, they fell through injuries or schedules or whatever. But yeah, Weidman, obviously I always had my eye on him. He was a champion and he'll be a future Hall of Famer, of course. Yeah, and we always went back and forth as well. We kind of had like a weird relationship where my dad and Chris's dad would always get along. They were always having beers, and like Ray Longo and Matt Serra, just like the best guys ever. But I remember when he won the championship belt, and I was ringside. Sorry, I was front row, and they were walking out, and I said to Matt Serra, I said, "Hey, congratulations, but I'm going to take that belt off him." And they just looked at me and laughed their heads off. They're like, "Yeah, okay, Bisping, whatever." So we always went back and forth, and we're always talking a bit of smack. So I'm surprised that fight never happened, but hey, yeah, listen, God bless him.
We've got around about 40 minutes remaining of the official weigh-in. You can see just down the side of the screen there, fighters weighed in and hit the scales. We've not had anybody miss as of yet. Well, I don't think they missed because there were a bit of a glitch. You'll see there that the champions have all weighed in. They're well and truly under, and the challengers also hitting their mark as well. So we've got 2 title fights ready to rock and roll at UFC 276. Prelims from 1, main card from 3 on BT Sport 1. And we've got some fantastic fights lined up for you as well, including what a lot of people seem to be talking about on social media, Pedro Munoz taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley. What did you make of Pereira calling out Sean O'Malley? When was that? This week? Last week? I found it quite odd for a guy that's obviously right at the top of the division. Former main guy, you can see there on a couple of tweets coming in, which I'll get to in a minute. But what did you make of Pereira calling out Sean O'Malley? You would have expected it maybe the other way, Sean O'Malley to be calling out Pereira looking up the tree rather than someone looking down the tree and calling someone out, Mike.
I mean, listen, he knows O'Malley's a massive star. He's a mega star. And in bantamweight, there's so many legends and there's so many former champions. Obviously, Aljamain, you've got Jose Aldo, legend, TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, Chito Vera. I mean, bantamweight, people always talk about lightweight, but bantamweight is catching it up. So many great fighters. And for Peter Yan, he's not going to get a title shot right now, So Sugar Sean O'Malley ticks all the boxes, gives him a huge win over probably the biggest star. I say O'Malley is a bigger star than all of them, not in terms of resume, not in terms of what he's achieved in the sport, but in terms of the new fans, the younger generation. He resonates and connects with all of them. The way he dresses, the pink Lamborghini, the larger than life persona, the smoking weed and all the rest of it. He's a star, and that's why he's opening these pay-per-views every single time. Peter Yan sees that. He thinks stylistically he could batter him because it might be a good stylistic matchup for him. So it ticks all the boxes if you're Peter Yan, to use the proper pronunciation.
You go along with that, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point, isn't it? It just shows you how much of a star that Sean O'Malley is, but also the fact that the guys above him are aware that he's a star, aware that he generates interest, aware that he crosses over to a different generation of fans than the legends that are in this weight class. But also the fact that he's young and he's got a lot to learn and he's inexperienced. And actually, if I fight him now and beat him now, chances are I'm going to be in a better position than if I fight him in 3 or 4 years' time. But Pedro Munoz gets the first opportunity. Here they are doing a head-to-head after the weigh-in, after the media day. You can see the size difference there, and obviously O'Malley just playing to the crowd a little bit. But look how focused Pedro Munoz is, though, as well. Pedro Munoz got exactly the same mindset as Pereira Yan, and that is new kid on the block, a lot to learn, all flash. Let's see if he can back it up. And I think Pedro Munoz is going to ask some questions. The thing is, I also think Sean O'Malley can back it up. And he's got incredible amount of ability. He's a wonderful striker. He's absolutely legit on the ground as well. He's much more than just the hair, the car, and the persona. This kid can absolutely fight. But I think Mike's right. That's why Yan's looking all the way down to number 10, when really he should be worried about who's in 3 and 4.
Away from the title fights at the weekend, UFC 276, which is the fight that you're most excited about? Is it Munoz versus O'Malley, or is there something else catching your imagination, Mike?
Listen, I'm always on the middleweight division, obviously, and it's other than the main event, it's Pereira and Sean Strickland, because that is I think that's been confirmed, right? Pretty much a number one contender fight. So that's going to decide who, if Adesanya is successful, he faces next. Of course, that sounds like a disrespectful sentence to Jared Cannonier. Jared possesses and poses a real threat. I picked Adesanya, but I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't blow my mind if Cannonier pulled it off. But if Adesanya does win the fight as expected, yeah, I mean, that is the one that's going to present the next challenge. So yeah, that's the one I'm really paying attention. And I want to see what Pereira can do against, as Nick said, someone with a complete threat, somebody that's good enough to stand with him to set up the takedowns. Let's see if this guy can live up to the hype. So yeah, interesting fight for me.
Where you at, Nick? Which other fight are you looking for?
The scale, competing live on pay-per-view Saturday night, the fourth-ranked UFC middleweight contender, Sean Strickland.
I'll let you answer that question in a moment. Here's Sean Strickland.
The way he struts onto the stage. He's a funny personality, and he's like an abrasive character, a bit like Marmite.
Well,
185 and a half.
I wanted to strangle him on many occasions.
Strickland.
Absolutely. He definitely is that type of personality.
We have got into it a lot of times in the gym. And he came up to me one day, he said, Mike, my friend said to me that they think that you don't like me. And I swore, I said, yeah, well, you talk a lot of bleep, and he went, yeah, I do.
That it?
He gets it, though, man. Yeah, he gets it.
Listen,
no, but
he knows who wears the trousers around here. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Right. He puts it on for the camera, but he knows this. But there's only one alpha male when me and Strickland are both in a room together.
Wait a minute. Before this show went live, we know right now you've got no trousers on. We know that because we've seen it off camera before. We don't need to see it. We don't.
I had to make sure I pulled them down, though. I'm only messing about Sean, by the way. Before
Listen,
he sees this, he comes after me in the night with a gun and a knife.
The Strickland thing's intriguing. I thought we were going to get Robbie Lawler weighing in then, of course. Listen, when people like Robbie Lawler inside the octagon, when Jim Miller and Donald Cerrone are stepping inside the octagon, and if you're relatively new to MMA or even you've been watching it for, a couple of decades like me, you're going to have a lump in your throat in those moments because it could be the last time you see them, man. And these are guys that basically got me into the sport. So, of course, I always look out for their fights. But at the other end of the spectrum, the fight I'm probably looking forward to is Ian Garry. Just because this guy, 3 fights in 8 months, all pay-per-view. Like, that just doesn't happen, especially for British and Irish prospects. We don't tend to have those kind of opportunities. Chances are you get your debut, you do well. Oh, great. We'll try you on a European card. Oh, you've done well. We'll move you up a European card. That's just not happened at all for Ian Garry. It's like, boom, we'll get you out of Cage Warriors where you were champ with one leg. We'll put you on this Madison Square Garden the first time you've even attended a UFC event and you're on the card. You look sensational. Right, next pay-per-view for you. Right, stay here. Next pay-per-view. They don't do that to anybody. They only do that with special athletes that they believe can go on and become pay-per-view stars like Sean O'Malley. Ian Garry has absolutely got that kind of potential. Once again, he's in a tough fight this weekend. A lot of questions asked. But I've spent a lot of time speaking with people, trainers, coaches, fighters especially, out of Sanford MMA in Florida over the last 6 months. And when you chat to them about the mat, the quality there, the Henry Hoof, the coaching, the fighters, they all say the same thing. Oh, yeah, Chandler's on the mat. Kamaru Usman's on the mat. Gilbert Burns is on the mat. And you always say, Ian Garry's on the mat. Like, Ian Garry is already teaching them, bringing them on, holding his own with the top echelon guys from the sport. And what is he? Ian Garry, 24 years of age. The kid's going to be a superstar, man.
He's rolling with Shavkat, man.
He'll be a superstar, but he's going to get through Gabe Green, and it's a step up.
Correct.
It's a big step up. It's a tough fight. I agree with what you said, Nick. And he's shown tremendous pedigree, and of course, being down at Sanford, there's no better place to train right now. Even better than American Top Team, I'd say. And Henry Hooft is just an incredible coach. He really is. The way he connects with his fighters, and I love the instruction that he gives. Very to the point. There's no filler. It's just clear, precise instructions. But Gabe's tough. Gabe's tough. It's a tough fight for both men. A tough fight for both men. It's an even fight. And it'll be career defining in many ways, because I think if Ian can go out there and take him out and beat him and dominate him, certainly like he did against whoever it was, I forget, at Madison Square Garden. If he can do that to Gabe Green, oh my word! I mean, listen, the future is bright. The future is orange.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, how loud is it going to be when Jim Miller and Donald Cerrone walk out, Nick? We're getting a few of these now recently, haven't we? Where we're getting these guys, these legends being pitted against each other. And of course, it means something to them. It doesn't mean anything for the division as a whole regarding title fights and stuff like that. But there's always nice to see these types of fights on a card like this.
Yeah, of course. You know, I think we almost got a second one as well. I think if it wasn't for the fact that Brian Barberena beat Matt Brown, when I think a lot of people thought Matt Brown just edged it, that fight of the night there back in March, I think it was, then we might have got Matt Brown versus Robbie Lawler on this card as well. We could have had a double hit of the legends. I love it. I'm all up for it, especially when it's the likes of Miller versus Cerrone, or, you know, the fight that fell off for Cerrone as well against Joe Lauzon from a few weeks ago. If they want to extend their careers, they want to continue to fight. Robbie Lawler, man. These are three people that have more than paid their dues for this company, more than their name in the Hall of Fame, as building this company and this brand and this UFC to the biggest sports franchise on the planet, the fastest growing sport, whatever label you want to give it. These three guys were instrumental in playing a part in that along the way. So if they want to continue to fight, absolutely pitch them against each other. I'm all game for that. Because nobody loses Miller versus Cerrone, really. What are they competing for, the most fights in UFC history or something like that? This fight is unbelievable. Whoever loses isn't a loser. It's Donald Cerrone or it's Jim Miller. It is what it is. So yeah, I'm all for it, man. Especially on like prelim cards like this. I know it's getting shown on ABC in America, which Michael attests to is a massive thing, which will really drive people towards the main card. Why not, man? They're on the way out to the sport. They deserve whatever swan song they want to have on the way out the door.
Mike,
to your point there, Nick. Yeah, go on.
I was going to ask you on the ABC thing, because obviously British fight fans, it doesn't affect us. We're consuming it on BT Sport, of course, 1 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. for the main card. But that ABC situation in America where they're simulcasting the prelims, that's absolutely huge for the crossover of the sport, isn't it?
No, it's a ridiculous platform for the fighters to have, because, you know, if you don't live in America, you're not aware of the TV situation, but they've just got, it's all rubbish, by the way. American TV is the worst bloody thing. Even the adverts, the commercials are awful. I don't know how to get on. The commercials are like someone sitting there with a bloody little camera going, hey, come on down to Chuck's bed basement bargain galores, and I'll see you there, and I got the cheapest beds that you'll ever find, or your money back. Right? They're awful. They've got no business. The production value is so bad. American TV is bad. Okay? But on ABC, there's hundreds of channels, there's thousands of channels, but everyone has ABC. And when you turn the TV on, it's one of the first channels that you'll see. It's like BBC One. You know what I mean? That's the best. It's like the fights, the prelims happening on BBC One, prime time on a Saturday afternoon. You know, and Robbie Lawler totally deserves this. I mean, maybe UFC debut against Aaron Riley, 2002. 20 years fighting at the top of the highest level against the best competition. I mean, it's unreal. It's unreal. And he's still got the goods. I mean, look at that fight against Nick Diaz. I mean, them two stood there and went toe-to-toe. It was awesome. Well done, Robbie Lawler. Massive fan of that guy and the way he carries himself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got about 28 minutes, it says on my clock here, and it's Robbie Lawler that we're waiting for. Come on, Rob. He's milking it now, isn't he? Get yourself down, get yourself on the scale, and let's get ourselves sorted, shall we? We've for people that have just joined us, he's the only one. He's the only one, mate. He's the only one. Oh, we've got some Robbie Lawler highlights, is what I've been told. I'm assuming, I'm getting a lot of chat in my ear. I've no idea what the instruction is, but I think it's highlights from his fighting career. Is it from his fighting career, or is it from him in the bath? What's he doing? Is he late cuts in? What's he doing? Let's have a look. There he is. He's making the wall. There he is. That's what he's doing. Here he is. As you were just saying a moment or two ago, boys.
Savage.
Yeah, and then to see the resurgence that he had as well, because obviously he was well known in the UFC.
This was
then
champ.
This
was when he was champ.
Elite the Strike Force, but then he came back, became the champion, dismantling Josh Koscheck there. That crazy fight he had with Rory McDonald. I think what was it? 2 or 3 fights he had with Johnny Hendricks. The series of fights.
He finally got
became the champion late on in his career, and still fighting, at the highest level to this day. And there's another guy, Brian Barberena hasn't had the length of career. Barberena is a similar type of. This is genius matchmaking from Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is with Robbie Lawler, Mike, obviously it took him so long to get to the top of the tree. He finally wins the belt. I think it was 2014, beating Johnny Hendricks. Then he has that fight of the century contender against Rory McDonald. Then he obviously loses the belt to Tyron Woodley. That was 2014, 2015. I think he lost it 2016. He's still here in 2022, 6 years after that. Surely he's not harbouring aspirations to become champion again one day. Is it just because he loves it? He doesn't want to walk away. He just loves competing. And would you still compete if your body allowed you to, like Robbie Lawler is?
Yeah, I don't know. Never mind the last part of the question. But on Robbie Lawler, it's just who he is. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think obviously there's everything. There's financial reasons. There's A, because he loves it, and B, C, his body still allows him to do it. But he's just a fighter. Do you know what I mean? And you'll look at the strength of schedule. He doesn't fight multiple times per year now. That's because, again, he's getting the training camps take a lot out of you. But yeah, the money's nice, but it's who he is. And if his body still allows him to do it, then he's choosing to still do it. Obviously, his family supports him and all the rest of it. And he's still got the goods when he competes. I think he's realistic. I don't think he's even contemplating becoming champion. Fun fights and still pushing it whilst his body allows him to, whilst he's still getting victories. He's still winning fights. If he was getting brutalized, if he was leaving there black and blue with stitches all over his face, getting knocked out cold, then it's different conditions. But when he's still going out there and winning and putting on these kind of wars and he enjoys it, then why shouldn't he?
Yeah. Do you think it helps that you transitioned into TV and obviously became the number one personality in the sport? Has that helped you walk away from competing?
1,000,000% it did, because I had some other options. But it was more the fact that, and I'll say it again, I don't understand. No offense to Nick Newell. Nick Newell's got one hand and he can compete. Why can't I compete with one eye? Do you know what I mean? You can get in there, and the commissions have no problem having one hand. And listen, I think Nick Newell, for those people that don't know him, is a mixed martial artist in America. He's got 1.5 arms, I believe. So I'm not being disrespectful. I think what he's achieved is unbelievable and so much inspiration to anybody with any kind of handicap or disability to show what he's doing, but it does grind my gears a little bit. Do you know what I mean? That even if I wanted to fight, I couldn't anyway. So to answer your question, Nick, yes, being the media sensation that I clearly am, definitely helped. But those doors were closed for me.
I don't know if you saw this week, there was an interview that Dana did. I think it was with TSN, and they were talking about Jim Miller, seeing as it was speaking about legends. Jim Miller, I think, was on the card at UFC 100. He was on the card at UFC 200. And if he's still rocking and rolling by the time we get to UFC 300, Dana's promised that he will match him up. And it could be incredible, wouldn't it, to have him on all three of those centenary cards?
Absolutely bonkers. The problem is, who would you match him with? Because he needs to be equally matched with someone huge. I think he fought Takanori Gomi, I think, at UFC 200. So who did he fight? I'm not too sure who he fought UFC 100. Takanori Gomi, definitely UFC 200. So he needs a name like this. The Cerrone fight probably would have been ideal, to be fair, for UFC 300. But listen, what an end that would be. And not to force Jim Miller out the door before he wants to leave, but what a finale for him to go, my last ever fight, UFC 300. I can't see anybody catching him anytime soon, a number of fights that he's had in the UFC. And if he keeps going for another, when is UFC 300? Starting next year? Another 6 months?
Years.
That was it? We're a couple of years away.
We're at 276. We're at 276 now, aren't we?
Right. So he's still got 2 years to go. So let's say he gets another, at least another, 4 or 5 fights in. It could be his 5th fight. My goodness, what would that take him to? 50-odd career fights? Absolutely mental. More. 55, 60 career fights? Different stuff.
Jeez. Different indeed. Listen, whilst we're waiting for...
Mac Danzig. Mac Danzig, UFC 100. Jim Miller fought Mac Danzig. Sorry.
Cool, thanks for that.
I'm blown away, Nick.
Thanks, mate. Google.
As I said a little earlier on, Caroline Pearce is on the ground.
On the Wikipedia, bro.
Caroline Pearce is on the ground in Las Vegas speaking to all the fighters this week. She's been catching up with Max Holloway. And Max has been speaking about the prospects of maybe having a dance with Conor at some point.
If you get past Alex on Saturday night, do you think this is a case where we see a 4th fight? I mean, we're looking like that with Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno might be the first ones to have the first ever sort of, the 4th fight after the trilogy. Do you think that would be the case?
I will see what happens, I don't know. My first things first is Alex.
Yeah.
And, I'm not a matchmaker. I don't meet those guys. I don't meet up with these guys on Tuesdays and be like, oh, this and that. So that's their job to think about it, But there is, I have history, I have history at 55. I have history with the guy who I still consider the champ at 55. I have dream matchups at 55. And like you bring up Conor, I'm on a short list for Conor all the time. So
they all want that red panty night, don't they? It would be interesting to see what they did after this weekend. Let's say Max wins this weekend. It's all going to come down to the manner of a victory, isn't it? But if he does win, Alexander Volkanovski is well within his rights to call for part 4, isn't he, Nick?
Yeah, of course. Listen, if it's a points win in favour of Max, then absolutely, Volkanovski's going to be more within his right. Likewise, if he gets caught early on, I think he's more than within his rights to go, come on, it was a lucky shot, whatever it may be. The only way you don't want to lose either guy is to get beat up for the duration of the fight. The good thing is they're so evenly matched. I think that's kind of impossible to happen. That one guy just isn't that much greater than the other guy. They're so well matched. I think there may be a 4th fight down the line, but Max has got to win. In any way, shape or form, he's got to win. I like the way he's still talking about Conor. I agree with Mike, though. Conor ain't ever getting anywhere near this weight class, and I don't even think he gets anywhere near lightweight again. Max can only hope.
Former
Here we go, back to Vegas.
Champion, ruthless Robbie Lawler.
Last fighter on the scales for UFC 276 official weigh-ins here on BT Sport. Where is Ruthless at? Taking on Brian Barberena in the welterweight division.
$171, the official weight
Job
for
done.
Robbie Lawler.
Bang on. And by the way, that puts to bed that rumor of the light scale. He came in at 171, you know what I mean?
278 press conference with Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards proceeding at 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Absolutely.
There you go. We'll have, obviously, coverage of that press conference that John Anik was just referring to there between Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards, which is taking place a little later on. But everything done. Nice to see that the champs came through nice and early. We saw Volkanovski and Adesanya 1 and 2 on the scales right at the start of the weigh-in, quickly followed by their challengers. So the title fights were well done and dusted, and everybody else came through. And there have been no misses. Well, not to my knowledge, anyway. We did have a little technical error at the start, so if there was misses, I apologise. I missed them myself. But everybody that I've seen at the scales has hit the scales good. And we have got some sensational fights lined up for you, which go down on BT Sport. 1 o'clock prelims. Make sure you come join us on BT Sport 1 for that. And then the main card gets going from 3 o'clock, kicking off there with Pedro Munoz taking on Sean O'Malley. And the cherry on top of the cake is that middleweight title fight. And of course, sandwiched near enough in the middle of it is that featherweight trilogy contest between Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. And as I said right at the start of the show, nobody ever in the history of the UFC has entered a UFC trilogy fight 0-2 down and won the third fight. Will history change tomorrow evening. Max Holloway, it is in your hands. And will we still have Israel Adesanya as the middleweight champion of the world? Boys, just before we go, I know that you've already made your predictions on the preview show. Has anything changed? I know that Mike, you've been on a boat this week. You've been drinking pina coladas. You've been relaxing. You've been contemplating life, my friend. Has anything changed in your predictions that you gave us on the UFC 276 preview program?
Listen, I may have been luxuriating on a very expensive super yacht. However, that doesn't mean that I've taken my eye off the ball. I'm joking. I don't know. No, nothing's really changed. I mean,
you're sticking with
coming into this one. They're all intriguing matchups, and they're very, very close. A lot of them. I still think Adesanya wins. Who did I say? Did I say Volkanovski? I don't know. I'll tell you what. Here's a little tidbit. Anthony Lionheart Smith is so confident that Volkanovski wins this fight that because he bet my producer on my podcast, believe you me, if Volkanovski loses, he's going to get a tattoo on his body. That's how confident he is that Volkanovski wins this fight.
Wow.
Well, hang on, that's nothing because. Yeah, well, hang on. It depends what the tattoo's of because, with all due respect, he's got a million tattoos.
It's of the producer's name. It says,
"Oh, right,
I love Harrington" or something like that. It's bad language. He's going to get his name tattooed because he's like, you're out of your mind if you think Max Holloway is going to win. So
wow,
they're close.
Ballsy.
There you go, Nick. Have you changed your mind, or are you sticking with your original predictions?
No, well, listen, I've flip-flopped all over the place with Volkanovski and Holloway. That's the fight for me. That's the one that literally flip. It could go either way. I think if it goes early, it's Volkanovski because I just don't think Volkanovski can be stopped. If it goes late, I think Max Holloway on points finally set up a fourth fight. Main event, Cannonier is saying is not saying all the right thing. He's keeping quiet. Hopefully he's got his focus. We won't know about that main event until the cage door closes. How Cannonier reacts in the first 60 seconds, for me, will tell you how the fight's going to play out. That's how important the first 60 seconds are. He can't rush in, but he can't hold back either. It's going to be tough for him. But I think and still for both the main card fights.
Oh, there you go. Listen, you're in for an absolute treat. Absolute treat. I'm going to keep this going for another minute. Now I'm only messing. Make sure you come join us. BT Sport 1. 1 o'clock is when the prelims get going. 3 o'clock is when that main card gets going. It's going to be absolutely sensational. Keep an eye across all social media platforms here as well, because obviously the press conference is coming straight after us between Usman and Edwards. That's for UFC 277. So keep an eye on that as well. If you want to keep up to date with Mike on jet skis, get on his social media because that's what he's off to go. We will catch you on Sunday for the review show. Catch you next time.
A championship doubleheader.
It is going to be a fantastic night.
Here we go. King of the middleweight. That is it. Wow. Still undisputed. 2 championship fights.
Fight fans, get ready.